Dad.
Right.
And it was often met with some kind of awe. And I mean, lots of people know Dad, and like to me, he's Dad. He's the guy out in the barn tinkering with his toys, and you know what I mean, like tinkering with his old car or something like that, and being super annoying and all that stuff. But to a lot of people, he's had a big impact, and he's well, he's just had a lot of influence, I guess, and many people, I certainly won't say all, feel very positively about him and towards him. And so, I mean, I even had one guy sitting in my office, like, lean forward in his chair and go, "You're Bill Casey's daughter?" And then he threw himself back in the chair and he goes, "I'm sitting across from Bill Casey's daughter." And I was like, dude.
You're like a celebrity.
Yeah. It was sweet in some ways, but it was also kind of like, wow, like that's I don't know, it's unique, you know? So, but at the same time, it's also like you were saying about your mom, hearing people say that stuff. It's really neat to know that that's not just that's how they think of Dad, but that's how they think of where I came from, like that's, and it's not that they're relating that to me in any way, but in my heart, I know that's what I came from. That's the influence between Queen Rosie and, oh my God, you're Bill Casey's daughter guy. Yeah. It's like, I feel really blessed to know that I come from that kind of influence. And I know that not everybody can say that. And it doesn't make me inherently a better person than someone who didn't have that kind of influence.
Right, yeah.
But I got to have that influence, and I'm really blessed. And continue to have that influence on me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's neat too. Like, my dad lives here. And I guess when you're younger, you just don't see it.
No.
You don't maybe appreciate... I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Just like, I observe people and their behavior quite a bit. I find it fascinating, really.
Yeah, for sure.
Watching people interact and like sitting at an airport watching people is the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
But watching my father interact with people, it just kind of warms my heart because he's so good with small talk and with conversations and God, deep conversations.
Yeah.
Like, Dad is the person to have a deep conversation with, because just listening to his opinion on things is fascinating.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you get a sense of pride just watching them interact with people. Yeah. Especially people who mean something to you, who you care about. Like, seeing Dad and my husband interact just kind of fills me up. I love it.
That's nice. That's nice. That's good. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
All right, so we covered parents. We can vote. We can say to our parents, yes, we talked about you. You impacted us.
You were the first ones.
Yeah, after Deanne.
Yeah.
And our colds. All right, so who's next?
Impact.
Where do we want to go next? You want to go somewhere light, or you want to go heavier?
Who do you got? Listen to me.
Who you got? When I thought about this last night, I thought, on my little list, I've got Mom, Dad, and this is the next person that's coming to mind now, and it's my ex-husband. He had a huge impact on me, and people who know me will say that it was not a good impact. And in many ways, my relationship with him was extremely unhealthy. Like, there was a lot of, he wasn't abusive or anything like that, but the lifestyle that we led and that he, for the most part, facilitated, and that I was a willing participant in, like, it was very unhealthy. And it had a major impact on my life for 7 years. And I had already been, like, using illicit substances before I met him. And that's part of what attracted me to him, to be honest. And probably much of what kept us together. But while we were together, it was really heavy for me, and I was really, really unhealthy. And so that impacted a lot of my life for that 7 years. But it's funny because I certainly don't blame him by any means. And I mean, I was in love with the guy, and all of that had an impact on how I lived my life. He had has a little girl. Well, she's not little anymore. She's a teenager, beautiful young woman, and is a beautiful soul. And so that was my first experience as a type of a parent, And so yeah, there was a whole lot about that relationship that had a huge impact on me. And I think I took away from it a lot of self-worth lessons.
So for you, it was positive, even though you said other people said it was probably negative.
You know what? For me, overall, yes, actually, Kristy, overall, my experience with him was positive because I loved him, and whatever anybody else says and whatever anybody else thinks about like how well we actually knew each other, because in many ways we probably didn't really know each other because so much of our life together was based on being, altered in an altered state. We loved each other. We had some kind of crazy, weird love for each other, and it could never last, and that's a good thing. And I don't regret not being able to be part of that anymore at all. It's been like over 7 years now since that ended. And I would not be where I am right now if I had stayed. Like, I don't know if I'd be fully functioning, to be honest. But it was intense, and when I think of them, I have good feelings, And I used to say to people, I'll always love them, even when I had left when the relationship was long over, I'll always love him. And I think in my heart, I always will. Something about him, like something about our relationship was really connected. And getting out of that, it took me a lot of tries to get out because I kept getting kind of sucked back in.
Right.
But getting out of it and the years, following that and finding myself and getting the help and, finally getting better. There were a lot of big self-worth lessons in there, because although I had very strong emotions for him, if I had stronger emotions for myself, I would never have been in that situation. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I definitely settled for something that was not healthy. But at the same time, I still hadn't been diagnosed with bipolar either. So there's all kinds of weird little elements in there, and God knows even what he struggles with. I'm sure he's got his own, things that he's self-medicating in some way or other, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's still doing it or not.
That's a large part of addiction. That's why addiction services and mental health go together.
Yeah, huge. Yeah. I was actually having a conversation about that either this morning or last night with somebody, and we were talking about why my bipolar wasn't figured out by people earlier in my life. And part of it, although the drugs and alcohol that I was using were not effective in regulating, the mental health stuff that I was dealing with, or that I do deal with, they did mask them because it seemed like the problem was the drugs and alcohol.
Right.
When the problem was just being dealt with by drugs and alcohol, certainly not being made better, but yeah. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. So yeah, I don't know if I said his name or not. Did I say his name? Okay, good. No. I'm not going to. But because in my heart there's still always some love for him. But yeah, so he had a major impact on my life. Yeah. That relationship had a major impact on my life.
Yeah.
So that's a nice light one for you.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, go.
Well, I'll talk about a light one, I guess.
Okay.
And it's not a personal relationship at all. It's a famous person, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So Jewel Kilcher is, I believe she still sings, a singer.
Mm-hmm.
And
I never knew her last name. Jewel.
Yeah.
That's who you're talking. Okay.
So when I lived in Florida, and I guess before, I knew her songs. Yeah. So when I guess she kind of came out in like 98, 97,
mm-hmm.
98.
Mm-hmm.
And we had moved from Oxford to Halifax for 2 months, I think, and then we moved to Florida. There was a lot going on in my life, and I was 13 years old. So 13 or 14, 14, I guess. So it's a pivotal time in a person's life where you're trying to find yourself, figure out who you are outside of your parents. And you have, junior high can be awful.
Awful, yeah. Especially when you're in a new city.
Yeah, and moving like 3 different schools within a year.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Yeah. So I had crooked teeth. I didn't care about my appearance like other people did. And I really loved reading and writing and music, and other people cared about how they looked. They cared about brand name clothing like Puma and Nike and Umbra or Umbro. I can't even remember what it was called.
I don't know.
Anyway, just brand name stuff. And so I felt very different. I felt very outside of the norm.
Right.
And so being that kind of person and moving so much, I felt even more outside of the norm.
Yeah.
But she, like her songs, they're all about love and whatever. And when you're 14 years old, you feel everything and you feel like you're in love with your crush who won't even look at you. And anyway, that was just, her songs spoke to me.
Yeah.
But what really, like reading about her story, she's had an incredible life, especially when she was younger. Like she lived in a van with her parents and they had nothing.
Oh, wow.
And she stayed who she was. Like she had the opportunity when she became famous to fix her teeth and to buy whatever she wanted, and she chose not to because she wanted to be who she was and stay true to herself. And it kind of made me feel like, wow, I can be that way. Like I'm totally fine being who I am.
Yeah. And
it's okay.
Yeah.
So it made a big impact on me, and it kind of kept me going and liking myself, I guess, through my teenage years.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not a personal relationship, and it's not somebody that I've ever met, and somebody that, I would absolutely love to meet someday, but it probably won't happen. But yeah, she definitely had an impact on me.
That's neat. It makes me think of like songs that can impact you too, eh? Like like one song can. Yeah,
it's funny. Avery, our oldest, has a project for band, and it's to do a project like you pick a band and answer questions. So one of the questions that he had to do was, how does this band impact people? Like what influence does their music have on society? I'm like, well, every song has a different influence on society. Like one album, and they have like 5 or 6 of them, but one album has 10 different songs on it, and they all have different influences. And so we were kind of talking about that, because he was like, well, people like music. And I'm like, it's so much more than that. Like you need to look at, and he was talking about Gord Downie and the music that he put to the book about the Indigenous child.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, that has a huge impact. And I said, it does, but one impact